What's up, everybody? We have a special office hours. We haven't had a guest in a few weeks, but this week we do. It's not just Ben Jansen. It's
I'm
not
here
just my
though, but
family.
I am here.
It's
I want to
Ilanit
get
Meckley,
Hi.
so
productivity expert from Houston. Ilanit, thank you for being here.
yeah, thank you so much. I was saying before we started, this is so timely for us because we're as an organization, we're in the middle of some of this, which I want to get into with you here on this, but it's so nice to have somebody that does this for a living because we're dipping our toes in and it is a daunting world to try and get it all figured out of how to
Mhm.
not only manifest your own productivity and make sure that you're doing things right in your projects, but working with other people on that has been a challenge for us. So
Yeah,
let's
especially as like creative
oh
people, like we're not I would say we're not naturally workflow oriented. We kind of are like, okay, great, let's do this.
yeah.
Let's just
Mhm.
see what happens. That's where the magic
Mhm.
is. But at
Mhm.
a certain point, we have to like quantify it so we don't get lost in the weeds.
Right, and actually
Which
get it done.
yeah, actually get it done. That should be the tagline of this entire section. Actually get it done. We'll have that. Let's start with we want to give you some time to tell us a little bit about how you got to this place in your career, kind of your your story arc for your career to starting this business and what you're doing now.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here. So, I started off in the healthcare field doing operations and administration. Honestly, I really wanted to help be in the support space for providers and clinicians so that when providers and clinicians are seeing patients, if I were to be a patient in a hospital or at a doctor's office, I really want that provider to just focus on me and talk
Right.
about me and my issues and not have to worry about forms, supplies, the HR problem that they have looming, down the hall, whatever it is. And so my whole goal was, what can I do to help clinicians be their best? I spent about 15 years in the healthcare and operations field here in the medical center, and I gravitated to process improvement because at the end of the day, the hospital system is really just a series of processes. And it's really beautiful to watch. We always talk about, the great care that nurses, doctors, and all of the many, many other discipline areas all of the work that they do to take care of one patient and you multiply that by thousands and repeat it many times a day. So being able to participate in any kind of improvement efforts, it's very gratifying because you know that those efforts will immediately impact a patient or a family or an employee work life immediately. So I spent a lot of time doing that. I stepped away in 2019 because I really wanted to focus more on my family and I wanted to make a greater impact directly to providers and patients and business owners as well. There's sometimes a little bit of a conundrum that happens in a very large organization, and that's what I was feeling, where I felt the projects I was working on was too administrative. They were
Mm,
all very important, they have to happen, but I
yeah.
felt like I was way too far from seeing the impact that I wanted to see. So I stepped away and I started working with a couple of digital health startups. Um, for the next 5 years, which was, again, amazing to see. It was amazing to work with people who are such visionaries, who can see things that don't exist yet, and to be able to support them and say, okay, you have this vision. Let's talk about how we're practically going to do it in the
Mm,
real world with people and systems and so on. So that was really, really exciting. The last startup closed in February 2024, and by the end of the year, I realized I want to again go back, work with business owners, and work across all industries. And I kind of felt like if I could make it in healthcare, I could make it anywhere. So I really wanted to work alongside business owners, small business owners who are wearing all of the hats and say, how can I help support you? How can we build processes and operations together so that you actually end up doing what you want to do and all of the other stuff that still has to be done, but it doesn't weigh you down. Um, and the small business legacy really comes from my parents because they were small business owners my whole life.
mm,
And I saw them, every single day. We were all involved in the family's small businesses. And so the level of risk, the level of optimism, the level of effort that a small business owner has, I really, really respect that. And so I really wanted to help other business owners just really fulfill the goals that they have. So that's my story.
I mean, already a lot more noble than I thought. She's like starting off to make sure that patients are getting the care they need, and now helping in honor of her parents, helping the small business owner. And we're just here trying to make good video.
Well, and that's really important too. And right. And so what I learned from business owners is I know a little bit, but business owners or like videography. So tell me, how do you tell the story? How do you get all of that happen? And you help business owners or businesses see different aspects of themselves that they may not see.
Yes,
So you
you
bring
may
that
feel
out from them.
you may feel the same way I do too about this. Like I think one of my favorite things about this industry and about what we do is that we get to kind of step into somebody's world for a little bit, learn about it, help them with these things, and then go back. So you get exposed to so many things that you'll see something from another industry that you think may never equate to something else, but it does at the end of the day. There are these commonalities and these problems that you see come up over and over again that someone who's in that space all the time probably wouldn't see, but you see it and you can start to learn how to deal with it. And that for me is a super exciting thing. And you get to see it firsthand even more because you're really in the weeds with, the entire process of what somebody's doing with their business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Before we get started, Trey, do you have any specific questions? Because I want to hear like what the typical case study looks like, and then what the approach looks like, and then we can get into some of this other stuff. But
Well, so far, I guess my biggest question is when you're working with businesses, are you working with companies to sort of like diagnose and improve all of the processes, or is there specific areas that you generally work in within each small business?
The best answer is it depends. It depends on what that business owner comes to me with. It may initially start off with, I have this problem with this one area. I said, okay, well, let's take a look at it. Now, I know in the back of my mind that that one area, it's like an octopus. It really bleeds
mm,
into other areas, but the business owner may not know that. And the other thing is I don't want to overwhelm them. So we may start off with one area. And as I see that maybe the business owner has a greater capacity for change, maybe they're really motivated. They're like, "Oh, these changes are great. Let's keep going." And they say, "Okay, well, I also see issues in these other areas that we may want to tackle." So that's one approach.
mm,
And I one of my clients, well, she's a solopreneur, and so for her, it's a whole deep clean of her house,
sure.
and we have touched on everything. Um, we have touched on everything. Now, at every iteration, every time we're talking, it's always, do you still want this to be in scope? Let's make sure because, again, can't
Mm.
overwhelm people and so on. But it can very easily turn into a much larger project that is an outgrowth of the smaller project.
So what does that typical client that you're seeing these days look like? Is it the solo entrepreneur? Is it a small business with, 20 or fewer employees? Are you seeing larger businesses come in? Like where are you kind of hanging your hat these days with clients?
These days, it is the solo entrepreneur who's moving to a team,
Great.
or the solo entrepreneur who already has a team but doesn't know how to manage them really
I mean,
well.
that is the most, as someone who has followed that path, that is the most difficult transition from like you being the person that's doing everything, but only has to answer to yourself and only has to do things your way, to now having however many people and having to make those it work for all of those people. It is an excruciating process. And I wish I would have known you several years ago because it probably could have made it easier. But so what does that approach look like? Let's say I come to you. I've been running a small marketing business for several years on my own. I've been hiring contractors just to do it. I do everything my way. Now it's getting a little bit bigger. The money's getting bigger. The jobs are getting bigger. I'm bringing in full-time employees. Where do you start with somebody like that? That's like, hey, I have to have some sort of process in place to scale this and to grow.
Right. How much time do we have? So So the first thing is that I always talk about is what are your goals? And this is a question not because I'm going to take the time to create the vision with them. That's what a
Mm,
business coach does and so on. I use that question to help see, does the business owner even have goals? Or do they not? I've been surprised by how many business owners don't have goals, but we talk it through because, and the reason why I ask this question also is if the business owner has goals, then all of the processes need to support those goals. So we need to first be clear on where you're going. If you're a business owner, you need to be clear on where you're going to go. How do you measure success? And, it kind of goes on down the line from there. And so with the goals as my framework, then we start talking about, okay, what are the processes? And sometimes I don't even really use that word because it's not a particularly sexy word. So what what does your day look like? What are the things you do? What are the activities you do? What does your staff do? And I tie all of that back to the goals. And so then we
yeah,
see, okay, which processes do support those goals?
support
Which
it.
processes don't support those goals? Maybe we need new goals, or maybe we have processes we don't need to, spend our time on. Okay. If there are other team members, um, how do they participate in these processes? Do they know what the goals are? Do they know what their roles are? What systems do they use to do their activities? How do they communicate with each other? How do they communicate with the business owner? Do they know how they're doing as compared to the goals? We look
So you're
at the
kind of like you're kind of like the Wikipedia for the company. You come in and you like make the people create a really clear outline of
Yeah,
goals,
it's
positions, processes.
I mean, she's starting almost more foundational than that, where it's almost like developing a mission statement where everything you do has to go back to that to support that mission statement. So if whatever you're doing is not directly supporting those goals that you're setting, whether it's from employees or from whatever else, maybe it's not part of the process, but everything you're saying goes back to those goals and setting those goals first. That's how you're informing every decision you're making down the line with them.
Absolutely, and the goals need to be crystal clear, crystal
Yeah.
clear. So, for
Gosh.
example, I have a client, she does printing. She prints promotional products. And so this is, every business owner has a goal of making more money or maybe,
Sure.
getting more
Yeah.
customers, whatever. No, that's not the goal I'm looking for. She has a goal of she wants to turn around projects within 21 days. Beautiful. Love it. So yes, there are many processes to support all of that, but at the end of the day, that's just one graph. And we can a
Right.
second grader can graph that. And that is all I use to help inform the team. And then once we look at that, which she has done amazing jobs, it went from like an average of 60 days to 15 days right now. Yay. And then we
Job.
take a look at all of the processes that her staff is going through. I'm saying, how much time is that taking? Why are we doing this step? How can we make
Yeah.
it more efficient? Are you guys getting the information that you need? All of that to go back to that one single number.
See, this is such perfect time. So we just to add a little a personal touch to this, we're going through this. We just did recently some employee evaluations where we did some self-evaluations, and a lot of stuff in there was about productivity, individual productivity and contributions, right? To the greater good to the company. That stuff is so hard and so subjective, this idea of productivity or like what are these metrics, right? That even if you give somebody a scale of 1 to 5 to say, hey, are you not doing this or are you doing this really well? For them to qualify and quantify those things, if you're not ultra clear on what that means, you're going to get these wildly varying answers to stuff
Ben's
that
being passive aggressive right now because
it's
I
not
rated
passive
myself
aggressive.
all fives.
It wasn't just you, Trey. It wasn't just you, but
He's
it
like,
was
"How did
this.
you do?" I said, "I couldn't do better. I
He
couldn't do better."
literally, he's like, I cannot improve at all. I was like, well, that's great. I was like, good
If
job,
you
buddy.
don't toot your own horn, who will?
I know
That was my
it's true.
approach. That was
But
my approach.
the idea of taking the subjectivity out of that and being ultra clear about these are the goals, this is the mission of the company, everything we do points back to this seems like such a logical place to start, but it is something that seems so elusive to so many people because you're just caught up in getting the bills paid, getting payroll done, getting more clients, making more money, that foundation is so easy to overlook. But when you state it that way, it's like, oh yeah, of course that's what you would do.
Mhm. And it also provides a foundation. So it's very easy to um to say that that's very cold. It's a cold approach. It's very
Sure.
harsh. It's very black and white. I see it as that's a starting point for a conversation. So let's say if somebody is you're feeling like they're not productive or they're not hitting their goals or whatever it is, that's a starting point to have the conversation of why? What is it that you're doing? And I position myself as the safe space. So I have no stake in the
Mm,
game. My client's business is not my business. I mean, I hope they all do well. I want them to all do fantastically. But at the end of the day, I'm a consultant. I'm going to go and good luck to everybody. So I am a safe space of no risk.
yeah.
So I create that trust where people can be vulnerable with me because most likely people are not going to say, to a business owner like this process really sucks. It makes no sense. It takes too long. The technology, we all thought the demo was great, but it actually sucks. Very few people are going to be that honest with a business owner. Tell me, be honest with me, and we'll work through it and figure out what are those barriers, so that the whole team can be successful. It's all about
And I would
setting up for success.
So that I think brings up a really big point. This to me would be a good take home for people is like those barriers are probably fairly common across industry, across people that are, especially ones that are transitioning from being a solo entrepreneur to a team. What are some of the biggest roadblocks that you're seeing with those people that are making that transition that feel like they're kind of lost with no process?
The biggest roadblock I have seen is that solopreneur who's done an amazing job of building the business to get to this point, they also think they know everything. So the challenge is to be vulnerable, to listen to other perspectives and say, this is a turning point. This is an opportunity to hear other voices, maybe from the ground up, maybe from other experts, maybe from, the latest productivity influencer on TikTok, whoever, and see maybe I need to change some things that may be beneficial for my team. So I'd say the biggest roadblock could be that solopreneur. Um, because it's
Trey,
hard. It's hard to let go of some things. It's hard to admit that maybe there are better ways of doing things.
Trey, is
It's
this
just hard.
me? Trey, is this me? Tell me now if this
I feel
is
like it's
me.
both of us.
Okay, good. I'll let it be you. I don't want it to be me, but I'm feeling extremely vulnerable and targeted right now.
Oh, I'm about to cry.
Pop into that
I'm
category.
totally kidding.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
It's
kidding. It is, you're very right. I mean, yes. I mean, you probably feel the same way too, but I definitely, it is so hard to let go and to think that anybody can do it as good as you can. I feel like I'm pretty fortunate in the industry I'm in because I've surrounded myself with people that are much better at me at things that I just am not great at. I'm really good at the administrative stuff. I'm pretty good at the client management stuff. I'm not, but don't put me behind a camera. You know what I mean? Don't make me build your network infrastructure. Don't have
mhm,
me go set up an audio board. Like you don't want me doing that stuff anymore. That stuff I did 10, 15 years ago. I'm not as good at it now as I am.
mhm,
And I've been okay to let go of that, but it was a hard transition. Every time we move to a new software platform, every time we move to a new piece of equipment, I feel this hesitancy in me to be like, I don't know that, we need to, this stuff works. Why should we move,
mhm.
And I can see that that is a real thing.
Well,
And
and I
Trey, you've
it's
seen
so
this
fast
firsthand. I mean, you're going from, working full time at in a
for myself.
well, also in a big production shop,
Yeah,
then for yourself to now being part of a team. And so I'm sure you feel some of those pains as well.
for sure, all the time. Well, I was gonna say when people are opening up to you though, I mean, I would imagine they get really vulnerable, and I mean, I was joking about starting to cry, but not really. Like, I would, because you start to get really honest with yourself, and you're like, "Oh, I'm not doing the best job that I could be." And most people who run businesses, like, desperately wanna do the best job that they
It's
can.
so personal. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and so to admit that to yourself is difficult, and I would imagine
Yeah.
emotional.
So how much of your job is that active listening and almost being like a counselor? I mean, it seems like that's a huge portion of it.
Yeah, I'd say probably 95%. And not and because at the end of the day, process is it's just an expression of communication.
Yeah,
And the business is it's a collection of people that sells a product or a service to other people.
sure.
And so it's all about communication and it's all about psychology and understanding what people are saying, reading between the lines where they may have an issue that manifests as an operational issue, but the issue might be deeper than that. And getting people to that point, it's really important for me to understand that because I have to have a really large toolbox because
Yeah,
there is no one size fits all approach,
right.
and timelines may be different as well.
Uh,
Um, People may tell me that they're ready for change, this and that isn't working, let's fix it, let's do this project in this specific timeline. But as we start, going through it and all the vulnerabilities come out, things are people are more complicated than that.
yeah, for
You
sure.
can't make people change so fast. And it's one thing for the business owner to say, well, that employee needs to be trained and so on, and that's easy.
Mm,
But what if it's the business owner who needs to change? And so that's the discipline of change management. And I'm looking at people in the eye and I'm like, let's slow down.
yeah.
Let's take baby steps. And sometimes that makes the timeline of our projects go longer,
Mm,
but the point for me is not to just complete the project, say wonderful, goodbye, let me know how it goes. It has to be sustainable, it has to be natural, it has to make sense. It has to come from the the insides of the person. It has to be intuitive. And so if we have to go slowly, um,
sure.
then sometimes
Well,
I may be
you're
like, "Oh my
yeah.
gosh, just embrace the change, just do
Yeah.
it and let's move on." But on the outside, I'm like, "Yes, let's talk about
What
it."
was going
And
on in your
yeah.
life when you had this realization? Like, where were you in your career? And because that's a pretty deep realization to have. What did you say? Like, processes are really just a series of communications, or how did you
Yes.
Yeah,
say it?
and and it's more profound than that even that like you are putting yourself in a position to affect long-term change not only in an organization but in an organization that directly affects people's everyday lives. It's so much more than just okay, you're doing your job better. It's so much heavier, I feel like, for the types of organizations you're talking about, where it's the solo entrepreneur or the small business versus some Fortune 500 company, where it's
Hmm.
just a bunch of turnover anyway. And it's like nobody really cares, but these are these people's lives, and you're helping to affect this change long term. So I do think that is a good question. Did you have an epiphany at some point where you're like, you did say like, in kind of honoring your parents and their entrepreneurship, but was there something that clicked in your head where you're like, I gotta take this on the road?
Yes. Well, I didn't realize I had to take it on the road, but I most definitely had an epiphany and a light bulb moment. It was my very first job out of graduate school. So I was a
Mm,
consultant for one of the big four firms, and I was in a hospital. This was 2 years out after Hurricane Katrina, which now it's 20-year celebration anniversary.
yeah.
So I was in a hospital in right outside of New Orleans in Metairie, and we were on my team was on a process redesign project to redesign the day surgery suite. So procedures and surgeries in and out. The patients were not admitted overnight. So it was large. It was 12 operating rooms. I mean, it was just one operation after another. We worked very closely with the nursing leadership team. So as part of the redesign, we mapped out all of the processes, and you can only imagine. I couldn't even
Gosh.
imagine. You can't imagine how many people there are in. I'm not clinical, so I don't even know what's a basic surgery, but what's a basic surgery that you can do in and out. But you have obviously the surgeon and the anesthesiologist, but you have the OR nurse, you have the scribe nurse, you have the circulating nurse, you have the scrub tech, I mean, tons of people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we met with each person individually to get their piece of the puzzle. And I said, okay, great. We're going to get everybody in a room to walk through this. And the process ended up being on a very large piece of paper, as you can imagine. And everybody was like, we're all going to get into a room. And I'm like, well, yeah, obviously, because you're all part of the process. nurses do not talk to surgeons. Surgeons
Oh,
don't really communicate with anesthesiologists. So the beautiful thing in a hospital, and these are beautiful processes that when you go in, God forbid, you should never go in as a patient, but if you were, everything works beautifully and smoothly, and that's wonderful. What I learned was that everybody does a great job siloed.
sure.
And I'm sitting there facilitating the meeting, taking notes at the same time, eating my snacks because they were very long meetings. And I'm watching everybody and the OR nurse and the surgeon would tell to the OR nurse or the scrub tech, I had no idea you did that. And I'd be like, y'all are in the same OR for 12 hours a day.
You
And
don't
like,
know it.
you
Yeah.
obviously see what she does. And she's like, yes. And let me tell you, when you are delayed, it affects us, with A, B, and C. And he's like, huh, I didn't know. And I'm like, how is this that you guys don't know? They don't know. They don't know. They didn't talk to each other. And so that whole process, while each task was done beautifully, they weren't really operating as a team
As a unit.
because
Yeah.
they didn't all feel like they had to. And I'm facilitating this communication. And I'm like, I'm the youngest person here, and I cannot believe these people who've worked here longer than I've been alive haven't actually talked to each other. And this is what it takes to get them to talk to. And afterwards, the nurses were like, I'm so glad I got that off my chest. And the surgeons were like, wow, I really didn't know that, they have to do ABC. And I'm like, well, you really need to come to work on time because now you see the 5,000 tasks that are delayed when you don't, or, whatever it is. And that light bulb moment was when
Yeah.
I was like, at the end of the day, it's about communication and people have to talk to each other when things are working well and when things are not working
Not,
well.
yeah.
That's critical.
I think this also goes back to that idea of subjectivity where you think you're doing a great job. You probably are. But are you doing the job that supports the greater good or communicating in a way that everyone knows what's going on? Because we see this too. CamOp doesn't know what the graphic design guy did. The digital designer has no idea what the producer was doing. Those aren't conversations that necessarily take place in a media company. It's, someone's got to have these processes in place so that everybody knows the goal that they're working towards. And I think you're bringing that home. So I want to do this because we try to keep these at 30 minutes, which is really hard sometimes. And this
Well,
one we could
also
go
you
for
have a
hours.
prop.
Yeah, I want to talk about the prop.
Yeah, let's
So
talk about the prop.
yeah, does the prop in any way, can it help get us to just some actionable tips that we can give to people?
So this was to answer the question about productivity. An actual productivity tip, one thing that I really like to do is use Kanban boards, which has been popularized by the app Trello. Is this something you're familiar with?
Yes.
I'm familiar with Trello. I didn't know it was based on something called a what? A Kanban board?
Kanban, Kanban. It's a Japanese
Write it down, Trey.
concept.
Okay.
And it's very, very simple. So I don't know if you can see. Okay, I'll try to see.
Yeah, yeah.
So people's names here, that could be anything. And you can make as many columns as you want. But this is what I have. So not yet started, NYS,
Mm.
work in progress, and then done, which I did have one kid. He asked me, he goes, what does DONE stand for? And I go, done.
That's
I
your
wrote a
future CEO.
Yeah, he's a future CEO.
Now that he knows, he's got the power. So what it is each task here is a Post-it note. And this was to help me because what happened is in July, my entire family went somewhere else and on different programs, and I had to keep track of a lot of things. Each Post-it note is a task. So this is very visible. I kept this in the living room so
Uh,
that we could keep track of all the tasks. Of course, there's always an email and I was like, oh yeah, I have to do this. Or my husband and I would say, oh yeah, I have to do this. I couldn't remember all of those. Oh yeah, I have to do. I made them all in
That's
tasks.
amazing, actually.
it
That's so
is.
cool.
It's
So
super smart.
simple. All the tasks used to be in the not yet started column, and then you move them over to work in progress. And it's a visual cue, it's a visual aid to be able to document progress, A, and B, communicate to everybody, these are all the tasks we need to do. And it's very democratic because everybody can participate. Everybody can suggest tasks or move the tasks around as they need to. So, it's a great way to be productive in the sense that you see the tasks that you need to do, and then and then you want to move them. So, what is it that you need to do? And the bar is set very low to get the task done. So, for example, from not yet started to work in progress. Well, let's say I need to coordinate XYZ with somebody. Well, first I need to send an email. Oh,
Yeah.
now we moved it from not yet started to work
To
in
work in
progress.
progress. Yeah.
Now it may live in work in progress for a while, and let's say it's a big thing, and so, maybe you break it down into smaller tasks. But it's these very tiny movements where, what is that phrase that I'm going to butcher? It's like you eat the elephant in small bites.
One
Never
bite at a
mind.
time. Yeah.
One
It's
bite
one
at a
bite.
time, right? And
Yeah.
so that way you're able to track progress, and then it's self-motivating because you want to keep making progress. Or
Yeah.
if there's something you can't make progress about, or somebody says, "Hey, this task has been in this column for a long time. Like why are we not doing something?" You're like, "Well, you know what? I haven't been able to get in touch with this person for forever." And then they're like, what if we get in touch with this other person? Maybe they can answer it better. Oh, great. Well, if you wouldn't have had that conversation, it
Yeah.
may have stayed in purgatory for a long time. So it facilitates communication, it facilitates productivity, it facilitates motivation, and Trello is a great app to utilize this. And it's very,
So
very simple.
is that one of the tools that you often use with your clients is Trello?
I actually use it for myself. I have Trello boards for my clients. They don't see it only
Okay.
because I don't want to overwhelm them with more technology. I don't want to give them one more
Sure.
thing to do, but it's weaved into my conversation. And so that's how I keep track for myself.
I love the big visual board, like having something like that in the office to where you just walk by and it's like, here's what's up, here's what's going on. These are the things rather than, I mean, I cannot tell you the countless digital tools we've gone through to try and like find some semblance of order or
You
where
mean the
people are
countless
at.
digital tools you've stopped using?
Yeah. I mean, there's
Yeah.
ton. I mean, I will tell you, like, full transparency, like I'm a little embarrassed, but I've got everybody creating notes in Google Keep and adding me as a contributor so that I can see what's going on every week. Just because we don't have a
Okay.
unified repository
But that
to put
seemed
it
like the
all.
easy. I mean, the advantage of that was it seemed like the simplest way to
It's
accomplish that
very low
task.
hanging fruit and everybody's comfortable with it. And then when I have a one-on-one, we can sit down and talk about, I see this was on your thing last week. It's on here again. We can talk through it. But I kind of like the idea of putting everybody on blast and having a giant board so that you see where they're stuck, and it's like, it motivates you to move past those things. I like that approach. I keep lists every day and there's nothing better than crossing it off and be like, I did it. Well, let's do this. We're coming up on time. I'd love to give people, so my big takeaways from this, and then Trey, I'd love to hear what you're getting, but you bringing it back to that foundational idea of setting those goals and having everybody be on board with the same set of goals to me was very impactful because it's something that I don't do on a daily basis. We get caught up in all these different projects. They're all, for varying different industries. They may be very different processes in general, but we do still have a unifying goal as a company. And I don't know that I do the best at setting that forth on a daily basis or all the time. So that to me was super impactful. The idea of these small steps, again, moving things forward are huge because sometimes I get caught in this loop of procrastination because everything seems so overwhelming. And so then nothing
Hmm.
gets done. Everything gets stacked behind that one project I don't want to do. And it all
Hmm.
just kind of
Hmm.
starts piling up. And so moving it a little bit at a time has been really helpful. Also, the simplicity of what you just showed us and the idea of it doesn't have to be this giant, overwhelming, daunting thing is actually makes me feel very hopeful for my future. So thank
Great.
you for all those things. I mean, those were all,
Oh,
this was a really profound 30 minutes for me personally. So I
Yeah.
appreciate your
great.
time.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, my
Thank
my
you.
big takeaway is I love the example of the Kanban board in your home as well as using it professionally. I think that's like such a easy way, and I loved how you said it democratized the tasks
Hmm.
because one thing that I know at my house and also with other people is sometimes it feels like when it's too top down, people get disillusioned with whatever that
Interesting.
method is. But if they can actually write something, like take a sticky note and be like, we need to get this done and put it on the board, that's very empowering.
Take ownership of that. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's
Uh-huh.
good.
And then the
Yeah.
other one that I thought was really profound was the way that you said that uh, processes are a series of communications that people need to be able to express. Because in your example of the doctors and the nurses, it made me think how they were, like you said, they were doing their jobs so well, but because they didn't emotionally, or because they weren't able to communicate to each other, they were emotionally cutting themselves off and causing
Mm,
resentment. And so by
yeah.
unlocking that communication, you also unlocked the resentment that I feel like a lot of times when you're talking to employees and businesses, that is their main reason for being dissatisfied, is they don't feel like they can emotionally connect with their management, and they don't feel like anybody's hearing them. And so
Mhm.
that's interesting that that's really just a process problem that you solved.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. It is pretty amazing. I love watching people grow into themselves and then work towards bringing their best selves to work and achieving those goals. And there's so much happiness involved with that. You can see the weight lifted off their shoulders.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful to be a part of that.
Awesome. Well, how can people find you if they want to get in touch with you? Someone's in this position where they're needing some help. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, so connect with me on LinkedIn. I also have a website with a contact form on the website or by email. And I would love to sit and chat.
So we'll drop all that in the show notes as well. Ilanit, thank you so much. Awesome today.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks to the dogs for making a guest appearance too. It was good to
Yeah,
hear 'em.
Yeah.
thank you.
All right. Well,
This
Trey,
has been
I will
amazing.
yeah, you were awesome. Trey, I'll talk to you soon, buddy. Let's
All right.
all right.
Hold on,
Thank
guys.
you.
Wait for it. Wait for it. And bye bye.